he just went low. He's in his head. He's in his head. He's open. His head wide open. Cracked open in the face.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mario 2100 back again with another episode of How's My Team. We've got a bit to talk about. Obviously, we've got the Wanderers women actually played 2 games this week. Obviously, they've just played one yesterday at the time of the recording, the start of this video, against Melbourne City. We'll get to that in a second. They also play Adelaide United on the weekend. The game, I will say, has been moved to Sunday. So it was originally Saturday. It's now moved to Sunday just due to heat. So I will say that. The Wanderers men, obviously doubleheader, was supposed to be a doubleheader on the Saturday. I believe the men are still playing on the Saturday against Melbourne City at Wonderland. I will just make sure and check, but yes it is. Yeah, so they'll be playing at Wonderland, as well as Liverpool playing against Manchester City. Yeah, that's going to be a tough game as well. And then we also got to talk about some miscellaneous stuff, obviously including the Seahawks and how they do in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. So with all that said, let's get started with the episode. So I'm actually recording this on Thursday because obviously it is a big week this week and we do have to cover some stuff. As I said in the intro, we're going to talk about the Wanderers women. Their first game was yesterday afternoon. Against Melbourne City. They played a catch-up game for round 5. There is another game in that round between the Mariners and Phoenix that plays on the 25th of March. So it's still a while away for that game to play. But obviously it was top spot versus bottom spot. And the Wanderers are on a charge. They've won 3 games in a row. They win 1-0 against Melbourne City, the ladder leading Melbourne City team in the Women's League. And I will say, yes, there was only 1 goal. It was an own goal though. It was an own goal against one of the Melbourne City players. And the defence kept up pretty damn well all game. Ended up actually being 21 shots to 4 in Melbourne City's favour, and the 70.8% possession in Melbourne City's favour compared to 29.2%. So yeah, completely outranked realistically, but 3 wins in a row for the Wanderers women. And at this point in time, because Sydney FC also did play yesterday and they ended up actually losing, they lost to Brisbane. So with that, leading into the weekend, the Wanderers are officially off the bottom of the ladder. A win ahead. Ahead by 3 points off the bottom of the ladder. So yes, in 10th position. But again, in saying that, they are 4 points away from the top 6 at this point in time, obviously leading into that Adelaide game. So it makes that game even more important in terms of getting a result out of that, because 4 points is not a lot of points. So there is a situation where, yes, the Wanderers could make a charge with the momentum that they have. And I'm just going to, I think I just, had something on my camera there. That they can make a charge for finals. And the way that they're playing, they've obviously drew against Canberra United when they were still running on a high. Obviously, they've just beat Melbourne City. Yes, they just beat Sydney FC as well. But then obviously also beat Mariners, who were in the top 4 when we played them as well a couple of weeks back. Now, obviously, Mariners are back to 6th position, obviously with a couple of results that haven't gone their way. But what a couple of weeks it is for the Wanderers after and what a 2026 it is for the Wanderers women so far, because yes, they've lost a couple of games. They obviously had a draw against Brisbane, which didn't help them. Like, obviously Brisbane scored very late in that game, and obviously that could have been a win as well. So they could have been at this point at 18 points. So they could have been like right in 7th position right now, right behind Central Coast. But obviously, we're just shaking up that table because, yes, it was, again, like I said, an own goal, obviously, against Melbourne City, but sometimes you're going to take the games like that. Obviously, that would make it a 0-0 draw. If that goal was taken out with the possession, it obviously was had. The defence obviously played relatively well to keep out all the shots that they had, including, like I said, it's 20 plus shots on, on goal. Obviously, not as many on target. In fact, actually, let me have a look and see if I can see. What was it, round 5? How many was it on target is the question. Two shots to 1 on target, but again, some of those shots from Melbourne City probably were from long range as well, when obviously the clock was against them as well. But yeah, well, the last couple of weeks for the Wanderers, obviously that's 3 games in a row that they've won, and they've gotten 5 points out of the last 6 or 7 games, I think, going back to that Canberra game. So, if not 7 games. So ultimately, what a result for them. Like, obviously beating top spot is not an easy feat. Obviously, we couldn't do that against Canberra United, but obviously the length of the possession that we had in that game, we should have probably won that game, but considering Canberra United, even on their bad day that day, their defence held up pretty well against shots after they got behind. I think that they did pretty well. So obviously we're leading into a game against Adelaide United, which is obviously, like, as I said from the top, is now on Sunday, or Sunday just gone, and when this video gets uploaded. Because of obviously heat over the weekend, which it is going to be pretty warm over the weekend in Sydney. So we'll see what happens with that, but obviously that makes it 5th versus 10th, leading into obviously the weekend's games. But yeah, 1-0 win over Melbourne City after a 3-1 win over Sydney FC, and obviously a 2-1 win over Mariners, I think. Yeah, 2-1 win over Mariners. 3-2 win over Sydney FC, I should say, sorry. And 1-0 win over Melbourne City. That is crazy results for the Wanderers women, but on the up and up. And all power to them, because they're playing some good footy right now. So it's Sunday morning. We're going to talk about the Wanderers men's team. Obviously, we would have talked about the women's team as well, but obviously, as I said at the start of this video, their game was delayed to later today, because of the heat yesterday. Obviously, it was forecasted to be really hot. It was relatively warm, obviously, in Sydney. It was warm, obviously, where I am, and near the coast, and yeah, it was a pretty warm day, so I give them credit for obviously delaying it, because obviously the women's game would have been beforehand at Combank, so it would have been pretty hot. But ultimately, the Wanderers men up against Melbourne City. Obviously, it's the second time that we're going to play them in the A-League season. I think actually might be the last time in the regular season. It was a draw. It was a 1-1 draw in the first game. It's also a 1-1 draw in the second encounter. So, in terms of trying to turn things around after obviously last week's Sydney Derby failure, I would say. If possession game was good, like was something that they needed to improve on, they did, especially in the first half. At one stage, I think in the first half, I think it was like 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes in to the first half, they had like over 70% possession for the game. And realistically, when it comes to shots, It was like 10 to nil in terms of shots on goal in the first half before Melbourne City even got a shot on goal and a shot on target. It ended up being 58% possession to the Wanderers, 42% to Melbourne City at the end of the game. But it was 15 shots to 13 and 4 shots on target to 3 for the Wanderers. So the Wanderers pretty much led in the stats there. Shooting accuracy was better. So it's pretty disappointing in the fact that Melbourne City, after all that, were the one that scored first. They scored in the 65th minute. Thankfully, we got the tying goal in the 77th minute with Krayev scoring. But yeah, it's pretty disappointing in the fact that ultimately for the Wanderers, they could have played a lot better in this game and could have taken, like, there was a few shots that were on target, obviously, or were just wide of target that could have possibly led to goals, but there was a lot of times where players got in each other's way in terms of shooting, especially in that first half. There was a couple of shots that went to the wayside because obviously one person was trying to take it or another person was trying to take it. It's one of those things where it's a bit disappointing in terms of having that much possession, especially in the first half, and not actually having any goals for it, especially after, obviously, last week. But, yeah, it's one of those things where it's probably just going to get used to it at this point, because I think that we're not going to be a team that's going to score a lot of goals now, because it's only 13th goal on the year. And the next best is Brisbane Raw with 17, so they're only like 4 goals in front of us at this point in the season, but we've already played 16 games, and that's pretty disappointing in the fact that we haven't even scored a goal on average per game, which is disappointing to say the least. With that result, and also Central Coast Mariners also getting an upset win against Brisbane Raw away from home, so they were in Redcliffe, so they were near Brisbane in Queensland. Central Coast move off the bottom, move off the potential of going to the bottom. So now it's 3 points adrift between last and second last for the Wanderers. Wanderers on the bottom with 16 points. Obviously, if it was a win, obviously it would have been 2 points more than that. So we would have been a point adrift still. But it's one of those things where we're staring down the barrel of a wooden spoon, and I feel like possibly we're going to get it because the Wanderers are not playing well. They've got players on there, including, like I said, Ryan Fraser, great transfer for this club, but a lot of things need to change. We need to put players on that are actually playing well. Obviously, there was an injury or two, obviously, for our side as well, which didn't help, especially in defence. But we need to be taking opportunities. We need to practice shooting and goals and goal set pieces, because for whatever reason, when they get in front of goal, it's like they just hesitate and they just, they put their hands up in the air and go, I don't know what to do. I'm so fucking scared right now. It's like that clip of fucking Will Ferrell in the movie. He's like, I'm so fucking scared right now. That's what they are in front of goal. It just seems like that at this point. And I don't know what's going on with this team, but they just seem to do that on a regular basis. 4 wins on the board, 16 games. So that's a quarter. That's 25% win rate in terms of games this year, and we've only had 4 draws as well, which is also disappointing. But yeah, so firmly on the bottom. Obviously, with the table, it's going to change because there's still a few games to play at this point in time. In terms of me recording, obviously Adelaide and the Jets. That's a battle for top spot for the Jets, because obviously Auckland FC actually won against Sydney FC. Adelaide trying to stay into the top 6. And try to broaden that gap from 1 point between them and Melbourne City, who's in 7th position at this point in time. But yeah, it's pretty disappointing on all fronts for the Wanderers men, because they could be playing a hell of a lot better, and it's disappointing in the say that this team just can't find a way to get goals in the back of the net. So obviously our next game is during the midweek, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to think which round was it, 17? Against Wellington Phoenix at home on Friday. So it's a big game because it's obviously bottom of the table clash at the moment. Obviously with Wellington also going down earlier this week. Obviously, when it comes to goal difference, even Wellington are better than that. They've got -5, and we've got quite a few. We've got -8 on our goal difference. So even with a win, we still probably won't get off the bottom unless we absolutely belt Wellington Phoenix. But that's pretty disappointing to say the least, because obviously, hopefully we can get a win on the board against Wellington. Obviously Wellington got to travel, but we'll see what happens. Obviously it's like half a round, and that's partially because Melbourne City also are playing in the Asian Cup Champions League or whatever it is competition, because obviously they're in the knockout stages at this point. So they'll play their catch-up game for round 17 on April 7th. But yeah, so it'll be half a round basically for some of the teams in the A-League. So next game is the Wanderers versus Wellington Phoenix at home. Hopefully we can come away with a win, but a 1-1 draw against Melbourne City. I mean, it's not a bad result in terms of, obviously we got a point on the board, but running out of games to do that, because we can't keep doing that, because obviously, round 26 is the last round. So to get anywhere close to that top 6 at this point in time, it's 6 points between last and 7th, and then obviously 7 points at the moment between last and 6th position. So lots to do for the Wanderers. Ultimately, there's a few games left to go. Obviously, I think there's another Sydney derby towards the end of the season. I'd say round 20, round 24. Yeah, round 24 is the last one, and that's at Combank again. So yeah, I've got to flip the script in a lot of these games because we're playing very average at best. And our possession game in the first half, as I said, was really, really good. We just need to capitalise on shots on goal to get some shots on the board and actually score goals, because that's something that they really need to improve on. It's been an issue all year, and it just keeps popping up because, again, this team broke 50 goals last year, and we're barely even scraping by on a game, like a goal a game at this point. It's less than a goal a game, which is insane. Alright, and then we move back to Liverpool. It's Monday afternoon when I'm recording this. Just had a shower, so I'm a little bit sweaty with the heat. Still recovering from the shower. But we'll talk about Liverpool. Obviously, big game at home against Manchester City. And it was looking alright in the first half, and ended up being 0-0 at half time. But it ended up being a 2-1 loss to Manchester City. Very late in the game as well. So obviously it was 0-0 at half time. There was a couple of yellow cards around. Dominic scored in the 74th minute. So we got one goal ahead and thought maybe we might have been able to sneak in another goal. Bernardo Silva for Manchester City tied it up 10 minutes later in the 84th minute. And it was a bit here, there and everywhere. Obviously, Alisson Becker got into a situation in stoppage time, going into full time, got into a situation of getting a yellow card in the second minute stoppage time. Then obviously Haaland scored in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. Got a yellow card, so obviously he must have took his shirt off or something, because they card those in terms of celebrations all the time, which is really fucking stupid. Because we've seen over the years some like big moments, especially obviously as an Australian. One of the big ones, obviously, Jordan Aloisi, obviously getting us through to the World Cup. Obviously, it's been the first time in a long time that we'd obviously gone to a World Cup in, I believe it was 06, when like 05, 06 when that goal went in, and he took his shirt off and was running down the sideline, about halfway down the pitch, in front of the crowd, obviously pumping the crowd up, obviously cheering and stuff like that. So I'm guessing it was for that. Bernardo Silva also got a yellow card, and there was a possibility of, in the 12th minute of stoppage time, that there was going to be a 3rd goal, because there ended up being a corner for Liverpool up the other end of the field. And Alisson Becker had moved up as well, because obviously it was probably one of the last kicks of the game. And ended up rolling over halfway, and they ended up trying to score Manchester City. It went to VAR and actually got disallowed. But in doing that, Dominic also got a red card because he was pulling on the jersey of Haaland. So that doesn't help. So ultimately, I believe Dominic will have at least the next game off. Obviously, that Liverpool playing. I'm not sure if it's 1 game suspension or more than that, or whether it's 3, because I just, for some reason, I'm thinking 3 in my head, but I'm sure it's only just 1. But I'm not sure, because sometimes the international rules when it comes to red cards in, like, obviously World Cup games, like whether it's the knockout stages or like the group stage for qualifying for the World Cup, it's very different to some of the competitions around the world, like the Premier League, the A-League and all that type of stuff. So he's probably at least missing the next game, which obviously is against Sunderland on Thursday. So it's a big game there, Thursday my time, because obviously they're off for the weekend, because obviously FA Cup is playing this weekend. So we've got teams playing for that competition. Obviously we got back-to-back games this week. Obviously Thursday against Sunderland away from home to the Stadium of Light, which obviously for Sunderland at this point in time, I think they played Arsenal the night before. I think they played at Emirates, but Sunderland have not actually been beaten at home yet this season, which for a championship team that got promoted into the Premier League is pretty impressive. Like, obviously we're well over halfway through the competition now, because obviously we've got 38 games in the Premier League season, and we're up to 26 with the game on Thursday. So pretty impressive record, obviously, for Sunderland, especially where they're sitting, obviously, on the table, and we'll get to the table in a second. But obviously we have that, and then obviously playing at home against Brighton in the 4th round of the FA Cup as well. So very, very important games coming up. Obviously with the table, we can talk about the table because it has been updated properly. All the games are played. Liverpool was one of the last games of the weekend. So in first is still Arsenal on 56 points. 6 points behind them on 50 points. In second is Manchester City. So obviously the win actually did help them. The draw would not have done any good for Manchester City. I think they probably would have been worse off than Liverpool if there was a draw. Third place, 47 points, is Aston Villa. Fourth position is still Manchester United. They got a win, so they're on 44 points. Chelsea in 5th position with 43. Then Liverpool in 6th position with 39 points. Though obviously with that extra goal being disallowed, we don't actually drop to 7th position because Brentford are also on 39 points, but they would have had a bigger goal difference because we had +5, and for a second we had +4 on our goal difference, and they have +5. So we're in front of Brentford at the moment in 6th position, Brentford in 7th position, Everton move up to 8th position with 37 points. Sunderland dropped to 9th, obviously with a 3-0 loss to Arsenal. That didn't help them in the slightest. They're on 36 points. Fulham round out the top 10 with 34 points. They also drop as well, obviously because Everton jumped. In the 11th position, by the difference of one more goal conceded, should say, is Bournemouth in 11th with 34 points. Then 12th position is Newcastle with 33. 13th position is Crystal Palace on 32. Then Brighton dropped to 14th with 31. Tottenham down in 15th position with 29 points. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Leeds in 16th position, also on 29 points. It's just obviously their goal difference compared to Spurs is much worse. They're on -9, and Spurs have actually got a net 0, so they've actually got a flat 0. 17th position in 26 points is Nottingham Forest. Then 18th position in the relegation zone still is West Ham with 23. 19th position is Burnley with 15. And Wolves still round out on the bottom with 8 points. Obviously, still quite a few games left to go. 13 games left to play in the season. Talk about Hot Tottenham, obviously, with the fact that they obviously sacked Ange Postecoglou over the off-season after they won the Europa League. And saying that, obviously, we can't, even though we won a trophy, in European competition, obviously the results were not the way that they were supposed to go for the team, and obviously sacked him, and now they're almost in the same position as they were around this time of the season last year. So it says a lot. Obviously you can blame Levy for that. Obviously he's not the chairman of the club anymore, but obviously he still is a major stakeholder in the club. So yeah, not ideal for Tottenham Hotspur down there in 15th position. But obviously, as I said, on Thursday it's Sunderland away from home. So we're playing away at Stadium Light. Obviously a fortress for Sunderland this year. They haven't lost there yet. So it's going to be a big game for that, obviously, in terms of the standings. Obviously it's 6th versus 9th position. And obviously we drew with them in the first game that we played against them, and obviously it's going to be a big game against them. Then obviously on Sunday playing in the FA Cup 4th round of the competition against Brighton. Winner of that goes to the last 16, I believe. Goes to the quarterfinals for the FA Cup, so that'll be whoever wins out of that will go through there. And then obviously we won't have to talk about the Premier League until next week, like the week after, in terms of multiple games, because obviously after that we play Nottingham Forest on the 23rd. So obviously we have one Premier League game during the middle of the week. Obviously we will talk about that when we get to that. And then obviously FA Cup this weekend coming up. But 2-1 loss, and especially the way that obviously Liverpool lost, obviously was the 84th minute, so 6 minutes from the end of regulation, and then obviously losing in stoppage time in the 3rd minute of stoppage time at full time. So not ideal for Liverpool, but big week coming up, obviously, in terms of another trophy that we could possibly win this year. But we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, Champions League, we won't know, obviously, any of the results until the end of the month, so we got to talk about that in a couple of weeks' time. But we'll see how we go. Yeah, 2-1 loss against Manchester City. Could have been a lot worse, obviously. It could have been another goal, obviously, on top of that, but was looking alright and thought might possibly get the win out of that, but wasn't meant to be, obviously. And then we move on to the Wanderers Women. Now, obviously, this game happened before, obviously, Liverpool played. Obviously, I'll be talking about the way that, obviously, I'll be doing the videos, that I'll be putting the Liverpool sections back-to-back, as I usually do. And then, obviously, talking about the Wanderers. But it was, obviously, at home. Big game, obviously, for them against Adelaide United. At home, obviously, 3 wins on the trot for the Wanderers Women. going into a game where they possibly could get their fourth in a row. And it ended up being a 1-0 loss, which is unfortunate. Was 0-0 at half time, and it was actually our own demise. It was ourselves that we had an own goal in the 59th minute. Very unfortunate, come off the post and then hit the defender. The defender was facing the wrong way, went around the keeper. Obviously, the keeper went for the dive on the first initial shot. Obviously, they come off the crossbar. Off the post rather, and just deflected into our own net. So we were our own worst enemy in terms of this game, which is unfortunate because they played relatively well in terms of the stats. Despite that, obviously the possession was completely against the Wanderers, was 65-35. But they played relatively well. I think that ultimately they held their own. It was 15 shots to 6, but obviously the Wanderers actually got close a couple of times in terms of shooting, because Adelaide's shooting accuracy was 20%, with the 15 shots, 67% for the Wanderers, but just couldn't get. They went offside twice, which didn't help things. But four shots on target, but obviously 6 shots all throughout the game. Passing accuracy 62%. Like a lot of the stats obviously were completely against the Wanderers. But it's one of those things where it was always going to be a tough game to come up against a tough team as Adelaide United is right now. And speaking on that, obviously with the other games, I will say that Sydney FC also lost as well, so that kind of helped us in the end of everything as well. So the Wanderers are still in 10th position, but we'll go through the table for the A-League Women. Obviously, first place is Melbourne City on 26 points. Second position is Wellington Phoenix on 24, in front of Canberra United, who also are on 24 points in third position. Wellington have actually got a game still to play. Obviously, they don't play until... actually, they did play, obviously, against Perth Glory, and they did end up winning that game, but they do actually have a game in hand as well, so that's probably one reason why they're above Canberra United at this point in time. Obviously, their goal difference as well is 17, plus 17, which definitely helps them. Fourth position is Adelaide United on 23 points, so they jumped a couple of positions to jump into the top 4. Brisbane Roar, they're in 5th position on 22 points. 6th position is Melbourne Victory on 20. Then after that, in 7th position is Central Coast Mariners on 19 points. So they've dropped completely out of the top 6 after the last couple of games. The Mariners, which has been a crazy month for them, despite actually winning against Brisbane Roar. So they're actually worse off because they were on 16 points and now they jumped. No, actually, no, I'm thinking of the men. But they've dropped off a little bit. 8th position is Perth Glory on 17 points. 9th position is Newcastle Jets on 16. Then obviously the Wanderers in 10th position with 15 points. And Sydney FC on the bottom with 12 points. So, not a bad situation. We could have went two games clear from the bottom if we did win against Adelaide United, which kind of sucks. But what else can we do about that? Going into this coming week, it actually is 9th versus 10th. We play at CommBank on Friday night in the early game of the doubleheader for the Wanderers. They're playing back-to-back games again, with the women playing first and then the men playing afterwards, and they play the Newcastle Jets. So could be a situation of a win there against the Jets, but obviously, if they keep at the intensity that they did against Melbourne City, obviously with Melbourne City dropping points earlier in the week as well, staying on top obviously helped them in the long run. But hopefully we can get a win over the Newcastle Jets. Jets have only scored 3 more goals than we have at this point in the season so far. But they've also conceded 3 less goals as well. So around about the same in terms of goal difference there, in terms of how much we scored in games and how much we've actually conceded. So we're around about the same with Newcastle Jets. It's just obviously with the Jets, they've got 1 extra point on top of us, but we've actually got 2 more draws than they do. So that's only why they've got the 1 point advantage compared to us. So hopefully we can get a win out of that. It'd be great to see, especially with the intensity that the Wanderers women have had during their winning streak and during their streak of this year. In fact, actually, I think it's their first loss this year in 2026, if not their second. So they've actually done pretty well in 2026 so far in terms of getting points for the season. So they've done pretty well for themselves at this point, but obviously 1-0 loss against Adelaide United this weekend, and unfortunately obviously to an own goal, which isn't ideal, but what can you do about that? There's nothing that you can really do about that. You don't really plan for an own goal, obviously, so unfortunate, but these things do happen. And that'll be it for this episode of How's My Team. Obviously changing to my Seattle Seahawks jersey, because obviously we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. We'll get to that in a second. We'll talk about the Liverpool Women's team, because obviously I've talked about them a couple of times in this series, especially over the last few weeks. And they ended up getting a 4-1 win over Aston Villa. So they played very clinical. They ended up actually scoring pretty early as well. I'll just get the game up because I need to talk about this. So it ended up being 2-1 at half time. They scored in the 9th minute and the 14th minute. Then Aston Villa got one back in the 41st minute before half time. Then Liverpool scored in the 83rd minute and the 7th minute of stoppage time as well with that. So fantastic results for the Liverpool women. Obviously this was played I think the night of Saturday night, I believe. So could have talked about it on Sunday. But with that, obviously, and West Ham's jumped them. With that, you can actually see that Liverpool are now officially off the bottom of the ladder. And I thought West Ham was going to be the team that was going to drop underneath them, but they ended up getting a win as well. But Leicester City lost to Man United earlier in the week, so we've actually jumped them off the bottom of the ladder. So now it's West Ham on 11 points, Liverpool on 10, and Leicester City on 9. Though Leicester still does have to play Arsenal. Arsenal in 4th right now, so that could possibly be another loss for them as well, which does help things for Liverpool to stay off the bottom of the ladder. But they're off the bottom of the ladder, which is great. Again, like I said, I don't know if it's a relegation zone or not when it comes to being in 12th position in this competition, going down to the 2nd grade or not, because there is a 2nd grade, like this Super League 2, which obviously has Liverpool on the top, but some of the other teams are in there that I don't even recognise. Obviously Leeds is in there as well, Charlton Athletic is in there, Blackburn's in there, Sunderland's in there. There's a few teams that are in that competition, but I don't know whether that's like the championship is for the Premier League, in that you get promotion and relegation in terms of the competition. But Liverpool off the bottom of the ladder in the women's, so that's fantastic for them, especially after a 4-1 win. Like that's +3 on the goal difference, which helps. Obviously they play Chelsea, and Chelsea is in third position right now on Sunday, which kind of sucks for them. Sunday at 11 p.m. my time, so pretty late. Most of these games are late. So it's like, yeah, it's 11, 5 to 11, 1 a.m., midnight, 23 is 11 p.m., 9 p.m. So that's probably the earliest one, which is May. But in saying that, I think daylight savings should be going on around about that time, or should be off there around that time. So it might be earlier, might be later than that. But yeah, 4-1 win for them. Obviously off the bottom of the ladder. And next thing we'll talk about is obviously the Super Bowl. Obviously, huge Seattle fan. So one of the biggest Super Bowls for my franchise in particular, for my team. Obviously Super Bowl 60 at Levi Stadium. So it is in Santa Clara, which obviously is a place that we play a lot. Play there quite a bit, at least once a year, because obviously the 49ers and the 49ers in that San Francisco 49ers are in our division, so we play there at least once a year, once a season. And so we kind of had a little bit of home field advantage. We didn't have obviously much to travel. We know what the atmosphere is most likely going to be like, obviously with Seattle fans going down, but then obviously Pats fans going through, and even just like general neutral fans being there at the Super Bowl. It's one of those things where obviously the atmosphere is kind of a little bit different, but we kind of expected a lot of things to happen. It started off very, very slow, but obviously picked up in the fourth quarter, especially. But the Seattle Seahawks ended up winning the Super Bowl. They ended up winning 29 points to 13 over the New England Patriots. So that means that we have a second Lombardi trophy in our trophy cabinet, which we should have had back in 2014 as well, but unfortunately didn't run it on the goal line, as we probably should have. But so that means that Seattle win the whole entire thing. They've become the NFC champions and win the Vince Lombardi Trophy for the second time in franchise history, and stop the Patriots. And the Patriots are now, they've lost 6 they've lost their 6th Super Bowl, but the problem is that they've also been to the most Super Bowls in history. I think they've won 6, obviously, and now they've lost 6. So yeah, pretty crazy. Also crazy stat, obviously Sam Darnold, throughout the entire postseason, didn't turn the ball over once. So he didn't actually have a turnover on his own hand, which is crazy because he's had some during the season as well. Some of them have been very, very important to some of the losses that we've had, and some of obviously the points that the opposition team have gained, including obviously that first Rams encounter, which obviously we lost by 2 points. Most field goals in a Super Bowl, obviously Jason Myers, he scored 5. Obviously scored the first 12 points for our team with 4 field goals, then obviously got the 5th one after he scored a touchdown eventually. So he goes to the top of the table in terms of most field goals in a Super Bowl, because there's a lot of teams that had 4 leading into this game, including obviously Jake Elliott from last year, kicking 4, and then Harrison Butker the year before. But yeah, so there's that. Obviously, in saying that, Jason Myers, including the extra points that he's kicked 17 points to 13 to the New England Patriots. So no matter what, if we didn't score a touchdown, we still would have beat them. Obviously, with the 13 points, New England ended up going for a 2-point conversion. Obviously, they're behind by 16, so they didn't end up getting the 2-point conversion, which would have brought it back to 14, which would have made things a little bit more interesting. And in saying that, the Super Bowl MVP was Kenneth Walker III for his massive run game on the ground, almost 150 yards, like total yards, which I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but let's remember that in terms of rushing, if you get negative yardage on a play, it will count to that total. So he probably could have had a hell of a lot more yardage on there, and he should have got a touchdown as well, but unfortunately one of our players in the offensive line didn't disengage from holding one of the Patriots jerseys when he went through, so unfortunately got flagged very late in the game. But yeah, very, very great result for Seattle. Obviously a lot of the competition in terms of the NFL kind of wanted this result because they didn't want the Patriots to win another Super Bowl. Obviously Pittsburgh and especially the 49ers, I guess Dallas as well, because obviously they've got 5, but obviously the Patriots are tied with the Steelers, and I believe the 49ers also have 6 as well in their franchise. I'd have to research that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So they would have went to 7 overall, and they would have been ahead of the Steelers and the Niners especially, but even if the Niners have 5, they still would be ahead of them, no matter what. I will say the halftime show was fantastic. I don't know if arguably it was the best Super Bowl show, but it definitely was up there. I have a really, really good soft spot for the Weeknd's halftime show. Obviously during the pandemic era, that was really, really, really nice. I love that show. Obviously you've had Michael Jackson in the past. Prince is obviously one that pops up as well. Obviously Bad Bunny played really, really well. And I might not have understood pretty much a lot of the songs. A lot of them had that dancing vibe that made you want to bounce and jam and kind of dance through the night. It has that kind of beat for a lot of the songs, which is really, really good, and I think that kind of brings like the party vibe to the halftime show, which it really should. Like a halftime show like that should make you want to swing and dance and just have a good time. So I think it did that. Obviously the ending part, a lot of it is something that's been talked about a bit, with obviously trying to unify a lot of America, not just obviously the United States, because obviously United States is obviously where football's being played, but obviously all of North and South America, in mentioning all those countries, and even obviously some of the island nations around as well, which I really appreciate from that. I think that was really powerful to say that on a big stage like that. I think it was really, really powerful, and really enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a lot of connotations when it comes to that. I don't really want to mention any of that because, I have stern belief on a particular thing, and I don't like, some of the people that are in power when it comes to certain things. We won't mention it. Obviously, don't want to get any traction with that, but my affliction when it comes to politics, which I don't want to talk about on this channel that much at all, because I don't want to add to the fire, obviously, but I would have watched Bad Bunny well over a lot of the other stuff that was around, including stuff that was online from other particular people, and it's also about that. But yeah, the halftime show, very bopping, and I think very much a lot of obviously didn't understand the songs because obviously I was speaking Spanish, because I don't speak Spanish, but I think for a lot of the people that do speak Spanish, especially a lot of people that speak Spanish in America, in the United States I should say, would have understood this a lot more, and I really appreciate it for them, because ultimately they would have had a great time, and obviously I had a good time in watching it later on, because obviously I missed the halftime show as the game was going on. But yeah, great overall game. Very slow at the start, but towards the end, it kind of a few fireworks went off, especially after the halftime show, which they ended with fireworks, which they usually do. Green Day obviously opening for the opening ceremony. I think it was a really, really good choice too. Obviously they're great at what they do. And yeah, it was a great overall time for Seattle. And ultimately there's a few things that New England needed to improve on. I think partially their schedule kind of negated the way they obviously wanted to play in this game. Obviously the defense for Seattle was immense in this game, obviously holding New England to 13 points and realistically holding them to 0 for a lot of the game until after we scored our first touchdown. So it was very impressive in terms of defense. And I thought possibly there was a situation where instead of Kenneth Walker getting Super Bowl MVP, there was a situation where a defensive player was going to get it because there was so many sacks. I think they ended up getting like 6 or 7 during the game on the quarterback. Obviously rushed the quarterback quite a lot. There was a couple of interceptions. Obviously one of them was a pick 6, which obviously was a defensive touchdown, which obviously converted. It's funny because they called it a pick 6, but then I guess in saying that, because we got 7 points with the extra point kick, I guess you can't say that the kick is always going to go through, so that's why they call it a pick 6 rather than like pick 7. But it's just a weird thing for me. That's just a weird thing, but I get the connotation with it, obviously, in terms of it being like overtime. If it was a pick 6 like that, then ultimately, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. But yeah, so it ended up being a defensive touchdown as well. Obviously, there was a fumble as well that got recovered for short field for Seattle, which I think ended up ending in a field goal as well. But it actually was the last field goal of the game for Jason Myers. But yeah, it was a very very impressive effort from the defense when it comes to Seattle. And the offense was pretty good. I wouldn't say obviously it was the best offense. Obviously Sam Darnold didn't have to do crazy stuff. There was a few crazy throws that he did throw during the game that didn't come off, but ultimately there was some that were impressive in terms of getting completions, in terms of trying to get the first down, especially on third down a couple of times during the game. So it added a lot of momentum to the offense. Obviously, mostly the run game on the ground was impressive. Obviously, Kenneth Walker wouldn't have got Super Bowl MVP if he wasn't playing impressively. So, overall, Seattle played well. Even special teams really helped. Obviously, Michael Dixon, who is an Australian, a second Australian to win a Super Bowl, obviously, after Jason Mailata from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's one of the offensive linemen. He played last year's, and obviously the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. Michael Dixon was the punter. Got a couple of really good punts in there. I think some that went in. I think one, New England had to start from the 2-yard line, obviously, from the with help of the Seattle special teams. But there was at least another 1 or 2 that were inside at least the 20 yards on New England side, if not into the 10. So really impressive kicking. Obviously, there was a few people that actually wanted Michael Dixon to win Super Bowl MVP, which would have been crazy, and the fact that a punter actually would have done that. But he kicked relatively well all games, so can't say much about that. And I think the argument was valid. I think there's a few people, like I said, on the team, especially defensively, when it comes to Seattle, they could have won Super Bowl MVP, but obviously it ended up being Kenneth Walker, and Sam Darnold didn't have to do that much. Like I said, he threw some good throws. There was one that almost got intercepted, but unfortunately got hit a bit too hard that the New England defender couldn't catch the ball. But he didn't have to do too much to obviously get the team over the line, because the defense definitely helped in their regard. But yeah, so 29 points to 13, 16-point win for Seattle. So that's the NFL season done and over with, which is fantastic. Happy that Seattle got another one. And then obviously New England have lost another one, and had one that's got away from them again. But, what else can we say? But with that, obviously, in terms of, I was actually going to give an update. I've completely almost just forgot. That's the wrong app. I'm going, that's Liverpool's app. The standings on that, I'm pretty sure are still the same. They are, so I don't know why I opened that. I was going to go to the A-League app. So obviously Liverpool up against Sunderland and obviously against Brighton in the FA Cup. The updated total table for the men's is Newcastle Jets on top with 30 points. Second is Auckland with 28. Third position is Sydney FC with 25. Fourth, also on 25 points, is MacArthur Bulls. It's just goal difference there. Fifth position is Melbourne Victory on 23. Also on 23 is Adelaide United in sixth position. It's just goal difference there. With Adelaide actually having zero, with a net zero, which is crazy because I usually don't see that on an A-League table, especially. Seventh position is Melbourne City on 22 points. Brisbane Roar in 8th position on 21. 9th position is Perth Glory on 20. 10th position is Central Coast Mariners with the win obviously over Brisbane on 19 points, which jumps Wellington Phoenix, who's also on 19 points in 11th position. Just their goal difference there is a lot worse off. And then obviously on the bottom is the Wanderers with 16 points. But, obviously big games. Obviously Wanderers Women, they're in the first game of the doubleheader. They play against the Jets on Friday night. Obviously on round 17 of the men's, it's Wellington Phoenix. So it's a battle for the bottom between the Wanderers and Wellington. For the men, I think even with a win, unless they get a couple of goals on the board against Wellington, I guess they'll still be on the bottom. They'd have to get at least probably -8, and then that's -5. They'd have to win by 3 or more to get off the bottom against Wellington. But obviously big games for that. Obviously Sunderland, and then obviously Brighton for Liverpool. And then I believe, if memory serves me right, next weekend, coming up, I believe the Titans should be in their first game of the season with pre-season. Yes, they play on Thursday against the Dolphins. So we'll be talking about that. Ultimately, they'll have a hit out on Thursday, and then I have one on Saturday, the 21st of February against the Storm. So starting pre-season, obviously for the Wanderers, for the Titans, the Giants, I believe their pre-season doesn't start quite yet. Obviously, they have Origin going on before that. Let's have a look. Pre-season. They only have the one game, and obviously that is against the Swans on the 26th, so we don't have to talk about them. And we'll talk about them in a couple of weeks' time, but obviously the seasons for the AFL and the NRL are just about to warm up, obviously, with the NFL season coming to a close. So we'll talk about the Titans next week. So that's the first thing that's one of the things we'll talk about next week. But yeah, with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of How's My Team. Sorry if I rambled a bit, especially over the Super Bowl, but obviously as a Seattle fan, I can't help it sometimes, and you've seen me do that more videos more times than not. So I apologize again, but this is bound to happen. So with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of How's My Team. This is Mario Mantel 100. You guys have a great day night, and of course, take care. And go Hawks! Super Bowl champs. Super Bowl 60 champs. Let's go.